Skylar.
Get out!
Oh!
Stop it! Just stop!
Let go!
How can a person be willing to cause a great harm to those around him just to achieve his own goals? How can he manage to remain morally comfortable despite causing the deaths of so many people? What experiences can turn an ordinary man into a devil who is capable of destroying even the evilest characters? If we are looking for a character that causes us to ask these questions, we don't have to look far. That is why we are going to examine one of the best television series, Breaking Bad main character, Walter White. Breaking Bad has been talked about and analyzed extensively since its release, yet Walter White's character still manages to maintain its mystery. It is an unusual event for an ordinary high school chemistry teacher to become the biggest drug lord in the region. Such an extraordinary event can only be achieved by an equally extraordinary character.
You're goddamn right.
However, Walter White does not seem extraordinary in first glance. Despite appearing quite intelligent from the outside, he also seems quite normal. He can be perceived as a good family man, conforms to society, and even repressed in some extent. Walter's submissive behavior generally emerges in the first episode of the series. We understand that his wife Skylar is a controlling character from the beginning. We also see that Walter has no problem with it. The fact that he has to eat vegetarian bacon at a breakfast against his will, he leaves the general responsibility of the house to Skylar and even lets his wife to tell him how to behave toward his boss, gives us a big clue about Walter White. We are facing a man who has lost all control over his life, given up, and been defeated by life. However, as the series progresses, Walter White proves to be much more than that. He begins to enter the drug business with his former student Jesse as soon as he learns he has a cancer. Here is the moment when an ordinary chemistry teacher begins to turn into a powerful and devilish drug lord. The question we need to ask is this: what will any person do when he has learned that he has a very little time left? The answer to that will vary for each character, and what we need to know is his choices will reveal his true nature. When Walter White learns that he has a lung cancer, he reacts to it with no emotion. This lack of emotion reveals his insensitivity toward his own life. In this moment of apathy, we realize that he gave up on living a meaningful and successful life a long time ago, choosing instead for an ordinary, aimless, patientless, and therefore unsatisfactory life.
Yes! 56! Oh.
Walter has spent his entire life allowing his fears to control his choices. Although he has some successful moments in the past, he has not been able to sustain it. He has become accustomed to failure and lack of control over his life, and even worse, he accepted this situation. After receiving the bad news, he questions his life by the pool at his house and begins to fill with a desire to do something with his life. He now desires a meaningful and fulfilling life in his remaining time. For Walter, who will now initiate the chain of events that he could not have predicted, it becomes imperative to change. Although he does not know that this decision will lead a significant change in his life, he calls his brother-in-law Hank to tell him he wants to participate in a drug bust. With this decision, he changes from inaction to action. He will encounter his former student and drug dealer Jesse Pinkman during this drug bust. When Walter sees Pinkman, a light bulb goes off in his head. Although he is not yet aware of it, Walter is about to make millions of dollars with his perfect chemistry knowledge and skills. This opportunity that comes his way will allow him to escape the overwhelming burden of failure and defeat. To overcome his sense of failure, Walter had to confront death. However, this confrontation does not end here. When Walter faces death, the hidden characteristics of his soul that he has never shown to anyone, including himself, will come to surface. And these characteristics will have an impact on his life.
Darkness.
To understand the depths of Walter White's soul based on his choices, let's look at the Carl Gustav Jung's two fundamental concepts: persona and the shadow. The concept of persona refers to the mask, an identity that person puts on and adapts towards the outside world in order to conform and gain approval from society. With looking at this concept, we can say that Walter's qualities as skilled chemistry teacher, a responsible family man, and good husband are the characteristics he developed in order to conform to society. However, according to Jung, the whole personality is not limited to persona. In fact, a personality is much more than that. In depths of the human soul, there are hidden traits that a person keeps hidden from both himself and society. Jung refers to this hidden area as the shadow. The reason why a person keeps certain characteristic traits in this region is due to the fact that both the individual and society discourage and eliminate these traits. An individual who openly expresses shadow faces the danger of being excluded and left alone by society. Since humans are highly social beings, they choose to hide their negative qualities through persona in order to avoid the risk of exclusion. With the confrontation of death, Walter White's effort to conform to society have become less important. He has not lived his life the way he wanted until now. After selling his share into the company he established with Gretchen and Elliot for a meager sum of $5,000, his life did not go well, and he has constantly failed. Despite his exceptional knowledge of chemistry, he had to work as a high school teacher. For Walter, it has become imperative to get rid of all these failures and misfortunes. In order to be satisfied with his life and regain control over it, he starts producing high-quality methamphetamine using his exceptional chemistry skills. He creates the Heisenberg, leaving behind his identities as a family man and a teacher and highlighting his malicious traits. Unlike Walter, Heisenberg is a highly ambitious character filled with desire to succeed.
Wow. Wow! Oh, that's some kind of logic right there, Mike.
On the other hand, Walter portrays a quiet and timid profile due to his inferiority complex. In contrast, Heisenberg is proud and ruthless. So, when was this Heisenberg formed by Walter's shadow side? And when do we first see him? We first encounter him in Tuco's office.
What's your name?
Heisenberg.
Heisenberg.
After Tuco steals methamphetamine from Jesse and beats him up, Jesse is taken to the hospital. Walter goes to visit his partner and is horrified by what he sees, but his anger outweighs his fear. The only channel they have to sell their meth is through Tuco. But as seen with Jesse's situation, Tuco is not just a solution, but also a big problem. Can a regular citizen who have always followed social rules convince Tuco, a dangerous drug lord, to change his ways? Or does one need another criminal to defeat a criminal? Can one only fight evil with an evil persona? In order to survive in a criminal world, Walter White must become Heisenberg.
You got one part of that wrong. This is not meth.
Heisenberg's darkness, ambition, ego, capacity for evil, ruthlessness and immorality not only keep him alive, but also propel him on the top. However, this will not be so easy. By working with Gus Fring to distribute meth across the country, Walter starts making much more money. But this situation has gone opposite effects on his motivation. Walter feels like he has lost control of his life again because of Gus's control of the entire operation. Since Walter's initial motivation for getting involved in crime was to regain control, Gus becomes an obstacle to overcome and a rival in Walter's eyes. We will examine Gus Fring's entire story and character structure in detail in the next video, but we can say that he has been crafted perfectly detailed as a villain. Fring is much more strategic, planned, patient, and ruthless character than Walter. Also, he does not have a huge ego. However, the motivation he has that allows him to strengthen his own drug empire is also his weakest point, which is the hatred for Hector Salamanca. Walter uses this to his advantage and kills Gus Fring.
Last chance to look at me, Hector.
And now he takes control of his life again. He's now at the top. He succeeded. And for this, he had to make his family hate him. Kill all his enemies, poison an innocent child, and turn a blind eye to the death of a young woman. This invites us to see the central message of the show in a clear way. A person who cannot confront his own shadow will first destroy his social surroundings and then himself. The TV show Breaking Bad delivers this message in its final, showing that Walter has lost everything and there is nothing left. The people he values most in his life turn their backs on him. His brother-in-law hangs killed before his eyes. He loses all his money, and his partner Jesse finally realizes his demonic side and hates him for it. In the end, Walter passes away in the laboratory where everything began. If Walter had been able to confront his shadow, he could have realized that the only way to live a successful life is not engage in crime. He could have realized that he rejected Elliot's and Gretchen's offer because of his huge ego, and this was against his own interests. This way, becoming a criminal rejected by his own family and society would not have been an option for Walter if he accepted their offer. As Walter refused to see his dark side, he created Heisenberg, a persona that took over his entire life and eventually destroys him.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was really I was alive.